Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 2 of the Night Ranger Deep Dive series on Tim's Vinyl Confessions. We're going through each of the Night Ranger studio albums and go through them track by track. And it's very much a pleasure for me to talk to my guest today. We've talked online several times. He's a fellow fan in motion. We will talk about that. Mr. Tom Chapin. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing very good. It is a pleasure to speak to you in person. And
Yes.
one of the first things I see, he's got some Night Ranger stuff behind him, which is awesome. But one of the first things I said to Tom is, I had that very Def Leppard poster that he's got on the corner there
Yeah.
from the Hysteria stage, the In the Round stage, and it makes me want to go find it again.
I think
But
I might have found that on eBay. I'm not sure.
yeah, I remember buying it just in a store in '89, and
Yeah.
and it was big. Like for me, like I usually had like one page magazine ads from like Circus and Hit
Yeah.
Parader. Then I had this thing which was like I don't know 18 by 36. It's
Oh,
big.
yeah, it's probably about that was kind of the going rate for the posters. I bought this as an adult because I think as a teenager I was running out of wall
Yeah.
with
Oh,
all my other stuff.
you couldn't see what color paint
Yeah.
walls were in my bedroom. I think it was blue, but you could just plastered in band photos. Yeah.
Yep. That's what those magazines were great for.
And you look behind me, not much has changed.
Yeah.
It's still a lot. So on this episode, we're going to talk about the breakthrough album for Night Ranger, 1983's Midnight Madness. Um, this was the most successful Night Ranger album, contained their most successful song. If people know one song by Night Ranger, it's on this album. First thing I want to talk about, and I've heard differing opinions about this, about what they people think of it, but what do you think about this album cover?
I think the album cover is bizarre. I think the way they lined up the band members is a little derivative, but what's going on behind them is what's important, obviously. There's madness going on,
Yeah,
and it's dark, so we can reasonably assume that it's midnight. I
yeah,
think the five faces there, the just get it out there that this is Night Ranger. If you remember, the band wasn't on the front cover of their first album, Dawn Patrol. But I
right.
think the Dawn Patrol image was very stark and dramatic. Uh, the cover of Midnight Madness screams 80s, I suppose.
Yeah.
But definitely what's going on behind them is most important. And that, if you're a young person getting into a band like that, your mind wanders and you're like, I wonder what's going on back there because you've got a guy climbing a wall, you've got a cocktail waitress, you can see a cheerleader, a moon man a bit. So there's some weird stuff going on back there. So that
Yeah,
gets one's mind wandering.
it's one of those, the more you look at it, the more you see. Like there's a cactus plant
Oh
on
yeah.
here, and it's there's a lot going on. Now, I would say, even though it's funny, I've always thought this strange, even though the guys are clearly on the back cover interacting with the characters,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like it looks like they're superimposed over this front cover, but maybe not. I don't know.
I think I heard a story that they had almost they had the artwork for Midnight Madness ready to go. They had to do some photography for I think the band members, and they had this background set up, and it was a layered project. And somehow there was something going on in the studio or somewhere else where an individual at this event or party walked away with the artwork, and it came to the band members' attention like, this is our album cover. Where is it? And somehow, I think it's a Blades interview from somewhere. Somehow they managed to get that artwork back. But there's a lot of times the magazines I was reading at the time, if I was reading any of them at all, were very vague on this. I was only 10 years old when this album came out, so I wasn't buying the magazines quite yet. So
Right.
anything that I have picked up about Midnight Madness is always interesting to me because I knew so very little about it
Yeah.
at the time.
And to add to it, like I'm looking through the liner notes
Hmm.
and I don't see who did this cover.
No, I think it's very vague.
I don't see anybody thanked for artwork. which is odd
Yeah.
because usually,
Well, actually, that part of the artwork is on the. Let's see. If you look at the back cover, no, maybe it's not there either.
oh, wait a minute. Here it is. I see it. Yeah, it's in the bottom left corner. Art and design, Jeff
Yes,
Lancaster for Art
Art
Hotel.
Hotel Inc. Yeah, so
Photography,
that's
Tom Gibson. Styling,
down
Pete
here. Yeah,
Manche. Okay, that was bothering me because I'm like, it's got to be on here.
yeah,
Now, the other thing about this is that what I always thought was cool about this, it didn't come with a sleeve. This is a page. This is just a single piece of paper.
yeah,
Uh, and it's got, photos of the band on stage on one side, and it's got the
yeah.
lyrics and credits on the other. Also, I've shown this many times, and I remember asking Josh about why this is, because I've got a Canadian version of Midnight Madness, and it's
Really?
on Epic Records. So it was on CBS
Yeah,
in Canada
I remember
when it
Josh
first
talking about that too.
when it first came out, and I've got a cassette that's like that too. It eventually got reissued in Canada on MCA, like the
Yeah,
other, like Dawn Patrol did.
yeah,
But yeah, but so this album was obviously, there was a little bit of that tells me that there was a little bit of obviously you had Boardwalk Records going out of business
yeah,
with Dawn Patrol, and they had trouble getting it to stores, and MCA came along to pick up the contract. But obviously that wasn't every part of the world because I think the early
no,
Japanese pressings of the first couple albums are on Epic Sony as well.
yeah.
Um,
I'm
I'm
not sure how the.
fascinated by stuff like that. When you see two different
Yeah,
versions of the same album on two different record companies, it's like, how did that happen?
yeah. That's always and um, I'm always interested in that too. There was an episode on Fans of Motion where I believe Josh was talking about where different albums are pressed,
Yes.
and you can
Yep.
tell in the I forget there's a name for it, the blank area or desolate
Oh, the
area,
Dead Wax.
the dead wax. That's
Yeah.
right. You can see or there's clues as to where Pickneyville, for example, you know. So when that episode was over, I was getting out all my Night Ranger records to see because I have probably three copies of the vinyl, uh, basically, and trying to look in the dead wax to see, well, where do I have this edition of
Yeah.
Midnight Madness or this one?
I'm just
So
looking at my copy of Midnight Madness. Now, the first thing it says, it's got the serial number, but then
yeah,
I can't really tell what it says.
I can't
Um,
either. That's
but
the eyesight more than anything.
I think before we go too much further, we should talk about Fans in Motion because that's how we got to
Sure.
know each other. Fans in Motion
Yes.
is uh, the ultimate Night Ranger fan, gathering, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or
Yeah.
Instagram.
Definitely.
Um, it's a fantastic community of Night Ranger fans, and it's nice. It was nice to discover that I know this band sold millions of albums, but I didn't really have anybody, not many
Yeah.
people in my personal circle to talk to about this band. So it was really great to talk to people that you could get right into the nitty gritty of,
Yeah.
not,
Definitely.
that's the band that sang Sister Christian. No, like, how about that B side of Color Your Smile? Like you get
Yeah.
right into the nuts and bolts of the band. So, um,
Yeah. It's been said many times by people, first time listeners, viewers, that I didn't know we were all out here. I didn't know there was more people who like Night Ranger as much as I do. So
yeah.
that's been the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We found each other basically.
Now you're even wearing a similar looking necklace to what Jack Blades is wearing on the cover here.
This is actually, yeah. And that's one of the first things that drew me when I learned about Midnight Mass was, wow, he's got a necklace with his band on it. This is one of the more recent reproductions that was sold on their website. I think I bought this about maybe 5, 6 years ago or so. But I remember seeing those necklaces in the stores in the 80s, uh, National Record Mart, things like that here in the
Yeah.
United States.
I
And
had an Aerosmith pewter one, but it kept breaking.
yeah, the chain and the clasp on this are not very good. I can probably count the number of times on one hand I've worn this, and it's always been to a Night Ranger show.
Yeah.
And I don't wear it much because I don't want to lose it. So
So
this hangs on a frame with all my other Night Ranger stuff.
yeah, but I'm honored that you decided to wear it for this for such a
Thank you. I
time.
figured. I
So
wouldn't put
yeah,
on a T-shirt, one of my Midnight Madness shirts.
now the background is cool. So let's get into the album. Obviously, this
Yeah,
was the breakthrough album. I mean, Dawn Patrol and Don't Tell Me You Love Me kick, that got a foot in the door.
yeah,
Um, but this was, this solidified, they were going to be around. I think Seven Wishes solidified because it proved they can do it more than once. But
yeah.
Midnight Madness was a big album, and it gets off to a really good start with either the first or second song I ever heard from Night Ranger, You Can Still Rock in America.
Yep.
Um, I've talked about this before, and maybe, Tom, you can remember this.
Sure.
Before, I'm in Canada, so I didn't have MTV. And
Right.
in Canada, we had a channel called Much Music that went on the
Hmm.
air in 84.
Yeah.
It wasn't available where I lived until 86, until
Hmm.
early 86. So whatever video shows were on, I would comb, just cable TV, just looking
Yeah.
for, a half hour, hour long video show. And oddly
Right.
enough, I stumbled upon one on PBS,
Wow.
and they ran a show. I had to look this up. It's like, am I remembering this correctly? But yes, they ran a show called Color Sounds.
Okay.
And the theme to each episode of Color Sounds, there are clips of this on YouTube, I think,
Hmm.
is that they would pick certain vowel sounds and highlight them in songs. So
Wow.
I think it was probably somebody that worked at PBS that's like,
Hmm.
okay, we got Sesame Street, we got Mr. Rogers, we got 3, 2, 1 Contact, we got
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
want an excuse to play music videos. So
Yeah.
let's have an educational angle to it. I think that's probably I'd love to know more about
That
that.
makes sense. Yeah.
But I remember there are certain videos I remember seeing, and You Can Still Rock in America was one of them.
Yeah.
So I think I'd already heard Sister Christian, but I definitely remember You Can Still Rock in America. I don't know
Yeah.
if I knew they were the same band at that time,
Yeah.
but I remember liking the song right away. What do you remember about You Can Still Rock in America as many times as we've heard it?
The first time I heard it was my brother and I. I was 10, my brother was 8, and we had for the summer of 1984, we had a, a fella in our neighborhood named Patrick looking after us during the day while our parents worked. And so, if there's nothing to do at our house other than play Legos and listen to the radio and stuff, we went to Pat's house. And Pat one day put on this album called Midnight Madness. We had already heard Sister Christian on the radio at our house, and Pat freaked out because everyone was loving Sister Christian. But he dropped the needle on the first side of Midnight Madness and that guitar.
Yeah.
At that point, I didn't really listen to rock music. I only had two rock and roll tapes. One was Pat Benatar, Live from Earth, and the other was Bill Haley and the Comets.
Okay.
Good stuff, I think. But the sound, the guitars, wow, and it was a happy, joyous uh, kickoff track for that album. It wasn't certainly wasn't like "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" kind of a darker type song. It was a celebration. It was like the Fourth of July. It was in America. It was like, yes, this is an American anthem, but it's not jingoistic. It's a story about two young people uh, wanting to have fun. And by the way, we're in the heartland. We're in the United States. We're in America. You can still rock in America. So as an opening track, it was outstanding, and it was different than Dawn Patrol. I think,
It
definitely.
was, yeah, now that you mention it, like it's looking back based on what came before it. Yeah, Dawn Patrol I love Dawn Patrol, but it's a pretty dark album. This
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
this has still rocks, but it's
Yeah.
positive and it's upbeat. And I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, certainly, I'm in Eastern Canada. I didn't feel excluded. I'm just like, yeah, that's cool.
And if you
Uh,
weren't, that makes that song all the better. It spans boundaries.
yeah,
So if you're in Canada or United States or anywhere else, you can still rock in Canada. You can still rock in America. You can
yeah.
still. It's awesome. That's
Yeah.
why the
But
last
I remember when I got
several.
the Live in Japan album and listened to that, you can hear,
Oh yeah,
the Japanese audience singing. You could, rock in America just as,
absolutely.
plain as day. And lyrically, it's very similar to this song. It came out a year later, but it's very similar to Brian Adams' "Kids Want to Rock" because there
Yeah,
were a lot of, new wave and pop
yeah,
acts that were popular, obviously, but there
yeah.
was still room out there for people that liked rock and roll. It just had to be catchy and accessible
That
enough.
was the beauty of that time of music, 84, 85, was you could hear all that stuff. It was similar to what MTV eventually became, where you could, and you remember 1984 was a year of Prince, Springsteen, Madonna, The Cars, Steve Perry. You had some, but then you would have some leftover Frontiers Journey stuff on the
Yeah.
radio. You had Foreigner. They might
So
still throw in some Foreigner stuff from Foreigner 4, which
yeah,
was like 80.
1984 was such,
Yeah, it
I've
was a
called that one,
beautiful
that's
year.
one of the best years in music.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of everything. You
Yeah.
had your pop stuff like Madonna, your more rock stuff like Springsteen and Night Ranger,
And you had
Bryan
Rat
Adams.
and
Yeah.
Scorpions, and
Scorpions
you
were
had
getting big.
heavier band Autograph. You had
Yeah.
heavier bands that had,
Yeah.
minor hits.
Rat.
Like Bon Jovi was just coming out.
Yeah. Twisted
Runaway was a minor
Sister.
hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a magical period. And I,
Outstanding.
and
Yeah.
it the thing is that the summer of 1984, it was just prior to when I really started to listen to the radio
Hmm.
and pay attention to the top 40 and
Yeah. I started
pay
listening to Casey
and
Kasem in the United
Casey
States.
Kasem or Rick
Yeah.
Dees, depending on which station I found.
I could get them both.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I could get them both, but
Yep.
they both were on Sunday afternoon, so I had to
Yeah.
pick who I wanted to listen to. And
Oh, that's, yeah.
but I just remember taking all of that in, taking all of that information
Oh.
in. So by the time
Yeah.
that I mean, we're skipping ahead here, but by the time Sentimental Street first came out, I was
Mhm.
fully ready
Yeah.
but the 1984 stuff, I have the best memories of, and there are certain songs that make me think of, like, like you said, that summer, and Sister Christian is
Yeah.
one of those, and You Could Still Rock in America is another. It
Absolutely.
makes me think of like going to the carnival and walking
Yeah.
around the fairgrounds. And
You had Van Halen,
oh yeah, the
you know.
1984 stuff,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
Huge.
yeah,
Huge. Awesome stuff.
yeah, great stuff. So
Yeah.
here's Night Ranger with their second album. Yes, it came out in late '83, but it made its impact
Yeah.
definitely in '84. And
Yep.
this album just, this just goes from strength to strength. Next up, we have Rumors in the Air, which I think to this day, I'm still coming across people that don't realize that's not keyboards at the beginning of that song.
No.
That's
Oh
guitar.
no. No.
It's
Yeah, you almost have to see it to believe it, what he
yeah.
does with the whammy and the volume. It is a Van Halen technique, but everybody was doing Van Halen
Oh
stuff.
yeah, like I mean,
Yeah.
if you listen to Cathedral from Diver Down,
Yeah, that's what it
it's
is.
it's 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 I play a little bit of guitar, but I'm
Uh,
no, but I understand what he's doing more so than I can do it. But he's taking you don't hear the initial pluck of the string.
yeah.
What you hear is the note. So it
Hmm.
sounds more like an organ or something. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound like a guitar. It's coming from a guitar, and
Yeah.
you have to be very good at your volume switch or your kill switch or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. I
And
didn't realize
not
he
only have you
was,
got one guitar doing it, you got two guitars doing it in harmony.
yeah. I
So
didn't
it's
realize they were doing that till I saw the Seven Wishes tour VHS.
right.
So
Yeah.
that's how that sound was created.
Yeah. And what a cool song. I mean, it kicks in, and
Yeah.
Kelly always comes in with those just the right opening fills.
Yeah.
Doom, doom,
Keyboards with
doom.
fits, real subtle, but you know, making himself heard. I think that's Rumors in the Air is one of those I call it one of the classic Jack Blades "You Done Me Wrong, Baby" songs,
Great
which he has,
storytelling. Used to call
yeah.
me by my first name. Now you never
Now
even
you
call
never
me at
even
all.
call me at all.
It's a
Yeah.
great it's a great play on. And David Lee Roth did that in I'm a huge fan of Fair Warning, and he
Yes.
did that in on oh shoot, the reggae sounding song. Push comes to shove. He says, it
Oh
seems like
yeah.
40 days and 40 nights if someone used my first
Does
name,
my
including you.
including you?
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like that. And
Yeah.
but I mean, that chorus just knocks you out.
Yeah.
I can't believe this wasn't promoted full on as a single.
I want to say that song was actually big. I think it was big on rock radio, stuff
I
that
know rock
wasn't
radio played it,
necessarily
and
top 40.
you
Yeah.
can find promotional singles for it, but I think
Yeah.
MTV should have gone all the way and done a video and pushed it to pop radio because it's accessible
Yeah.
enough to,
Yeah. That song would fit on any radio format, whether it was AOR or top 40.
yeah.
You had similar tunes like that. You think of a song now that I think of it, it almost reminds me musically of Center My Love by Journey. It's kind
Yeah,
of it's a
yeah, good point.
serious type. There's not a lot of bombast to it till you get to the solo stuff like that, but very similar
It
moods, I
sneaks
think.
up on you as far as like
Yeah,
it doesn't have a big guitar riff
yeah,
where AM radio program. Oh, we can't play that. It sneaks up on you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
But it's
yeah, it's
still a
it's
staple in their live show every
oh
and
yeah.
again. And whenever the diehards, you'll hear us talking about the diehards. When the diehards hear it,
Oh
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. It was it's. I mean, they've got so many great songs, man. We're just
hmm
getting started. But
yeah,
next up, we have a song that I have called a fast ballad. Why does love have to change? Because
yeah,
it rocks,
hmm
but lyrically, it feels like it's kind of got a I shouldn't say fast ballad, but it's definitely it's like a mid-tempo rock song cranked all the way. You
yeah.
know, it's got that guitar riff, like the opening lick. It's a little bit like "Ain't Talking About Love." It's that
Well, yeah,
arpeggio, but not too
yeah.
much. But
Nah,
it's got so many layers to it, and I think it's one of Kelly's best vocals,
that's a very
especially the
strong
bridge
vocal. It's an awesome. Oh yeah, especially and
with that
that's
hard way to go. Like that whole part is so good.
the that's one of those really different verses where they just repeat the line. You don't hear that a lot. Why does love have to change? Why does love have to change? What more they need to say? They're saying it in the verses and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But the thing that always, and that was another loud, first time hearing Midnight Madness, it was like, oh, loud guitar, heavy stuff. And Watson and Gillis are together on it. They're playing the parts together, and then driving, just a driving, one of the heavier tunes on that album next to Touch of Madness, certainly.
yeah. Those two songs probably wouldn't have sounded out of place on Dawn Patrol.
Absolutely not. And I think, you know, we talk about sometimes that there's not a lot of, let's say B-sides to those early Night Ranger records. A couple of tunes on Midnight Madness, actually, notably Sister Christian, either were prepared for uh, Dawn Patrol and they left over and said, well,
Right.
we're going to do our second record. We have these songs. We can do
Yep.
that. The notable one being Sister Christian.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there is a lot of carryover from Dawn Patrol. A lot of those songs would have been interchangeable to a certain extent.
I can hear on Dawn Patrol like songs like Young Girl in Love where I can almost hear a new wave approach to that, which is
Yeah.
kind of what stereo was, right?
Yes, absolutely. That I think it's generally believe that "Younger in Love" was a stereo song, and they
More
just
like the
kind of.
Cars.
I can see that because you think of a band like the Cars, where they were tagged as new wave, but that's a band that you could hear on Top 40 or you could hear on rock radio, especially the first Cars
They
album.
were brilliant
Yeah,
at straddling that.
it was. I love the Cars, and
Yeah.
again, 1984.
All the heartbeats.
Oh my
Yeah, those
gosh,
videos you might think and drive
I
and
think Heartbeat City is a perfect album
yeah.
myself. And again, another testament to what a great year 1984 was as
Yeah.
far as music. Just ah,
Um,
outstanding stuff.
so now we get to the big one,
Yes.
Sister Christian. And I think that it's a testament to I think that there are songs that I call them bulletproof.
Yep.
Um, I never ever get tired of hearing Sister Christian.
I don't either.
It comes on the radio,
Yep.
and it's like, okay, I wish on one hand, it's like I wish they played other songs by Night Ranger than this, but at least I'm
Yeah.
hearing Night Ranger on the radio.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what a magnificent song. I don't know how else to say it. It's just in an era before power ballads became commonplace.
Right.
Here comes Night Ranger with maybe the best one of them all.
I think I know there's been some argument as to is Sister Christian the first power ballad? Maybe, but you've got to remember you've got Open Ways and Faithfully by Journey
But
beforehand.
I mean, those are great. I love Journey. But how
Yes.
powerful are those ones?
The thing is, Sister Christian has a staying power and a way that a pop culture keeps recycling it. That
Absolutely.
is a testament to how big and awesome
Sister
that song is.
Sister Christian is something that the guys in Night Ranger need to be very proud of because
Absolutely. A lot of
every
people go for that hit and never get it.
every artist wishes they had a song that permeates pop culture that's bigger
Absolutely.
than the band that did it.
Right.
Like Eye of the Tiger. Like,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
a song, The Final Countdown,
Hmm.
songs that are just everybody knows, whether they have
Right.
any idea who sings it, songs that are just part of the
Yeah.
fabric of culture get
It is.
referenced.
And that's part of the 80s big stuff.
Yeah.
Um, it is amazing how that song recycles itself. Um, the last time was the movie Air, about the story of the Air Jordans.
Yeah.
And that was a period of time that was 1984, I believe, was set. So it was an appropriate idea to get that song in there. Boogie Nights, obviously.
Yeah.
Some other things, Dr. Pepper commercials, stuff like that. I,
Yeah. But,
you know,
getting back to comparing it to the Journey songs,
hmm
I know Open Arms and Faithfully both get mentioned, especially Open Arms because it came first.
yeah,
But neither of those songs, like I said, I love Journey, I love Neil Sean.
yeah,
Neither of those songs have the dun dun
yeah.
dun 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 dun. Like they don't
No,
rock the way
no.
Sister Christian does. They
That's
don't have that pow when the chorus
Sister
comes in.
Christian rocks, and it has the subtlety, the delicate, the keyboard intro and the outro, the way that ends with just the single piano note.
Yeah, it's and the way that Kelly plays the verses, the
Yeah,
hi hat and the toms
yeah. It is
and
an interesting drum pattern.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it is slightly reminiscent of something that Steve Smith would do. Like if you listen to Don't
yeah.
Stop Believin', that's not your typical drum pattern at all.
No, it's really different in that respect. Instead of just hitting a hat the whole time, or
Yeah, he's keeping
stuff
a
like
beat,
that.
but it's not
Yeah,
just the straight 2 and 4
right.
until the chorus kicks in. But
Yeah,
even then, I just love every part of it, like da da
yeah,
da 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 da
yeah.
da
That's awesome.
da da. Like it just, oh, the dynamics are. And let's talk
Yeah,
about Brad's solo. Holy cow! It's a masterpiece. It's a symphony.
it
With
is. It's
using that sustain to keep the notes going.
yeah.
I've seen him talk about how he had a feedback loop and it's just
hmm
it you never hear those notes die out.
No, and a solo like that, I think there are certain guitar players who sometimes show off too much. There's a word the guitar players use for it, which I won't use here, but
Right,
and just
right.
too many notes.
Yeah.
For a song like I remember someone pointing out to me a song like "Something to Believe in" by Poison. It's another ballad, slow, very serious, sad song. The solos, you don't need all
That's
that stuff
it.
sometimes.
I love CC. I love Poison, but I
Yeah,
know what you mean. It's
yeah,
and he can play really melodically, but
you
he
can
has to
too.
throw in
Yeah,
all those notes. But Brad,
guitaristics,
the thing is there's a lot of chops to Brad's Sister
yeah,
Christian solo,
yeah,
but it's just enough.
right. We don't need a "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" solo in
Yes.
Sister Christian, and he knew that. He's like, we need to take it this way, this soaring, just it grabs you, but it doesn't shake you. You know.
And that's something that to bring Journey back into it. That's something I also think that Neil Sean was really good at because he could
Yes.
play like blisteringly fast, but he would always throw in very
Yeah.
melodic parts for the ear to catch on to.
And "Faithfully" and "Open Arms" are all great
Yeah,
examples of that as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was, and sometimes and he knew when to play very simple too,
Yeah.
like Who's Crying Now.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
that's
not a
another good
flashy
one.
solo, but it's just right. But
Yeah.
yeah, the Sister Christian solo, and that's the only complaint I have is when you hear the crappy edits. I've heard edits that cut the guitar solo out.
Yeah.
I've also heard an
I
even
think I've
worse
heard it.
edit where the
Yeah.
second chorus goes right till the end.
This one, this is the 45 of Sister Christian, United States. It skips the part of the verse that I forget which one, but it's not. It's the one that they only sing once. The other one is Sister Christian, Motor and What You Play. You've got him in your sights. This is missing,
Yeah,
I
I
believe.
know the
Yeah,
one you mean.
you
Yeah,
know what I mean. Yeah,
but
I haven't. I did buy an import bootleg of some stuff where I think they have the single edit with a solo missing, which I don't recall ever hearing on the radio. And if I have heard on that CD, I was probably mortified, and made me wonder why I bought this thing. But there's a bunch of other stuff in there. But the single edit is usually what you hear on top 40, 80s weekend
Yeah.
on those types of stations. Classic rock radio, if they do play Sister Christian, it's
Oh,
the
they play
album
the whole thing. I
version.
mean, it's it's a according to this record, it's a second shy of 5 minutes, and you need the whole
Yeah,
thing to have
yeah,
the full effect
yeah.
because
It's like,
it's
why would you edit Purple Rain? You know,
exactly, exactly.
although there is an
Um,
edit of Purple Rain, which I don't want to hear it.
no, no, I've always, like I've worked in radio for many years, and I understand from a programming point of view, if you want to play so many songs an hour, if
Yeah,
you can play something that's 3.5 minutes instead of a full 5 minutes, I get that. But from a
yeah,
fan point of view, it's like, oh, I want to hear the whole song. It's like chopping it up.
yeah,
Uh, so, and that
yeah.
to me, cutting the solo out it's like cutting. It's a part of the song. It's like you're not getting the
It's
full
a
picture. And
integral part of the song. I mean, you get
now
from
there's
those
one thing that
verses, yeah.
there's one thing, and again, I'm skipping ahead, but
Hmm.
um, that can be good in a way because when I first heard Sentimental Street,
Yeah.
I was always on the radio. They cut the solo in half.
I can't recall off the top of
They
my head, but it might be
no, I could
different
sing it to
here.
you, but I won't do that. But
Yeah,
when I finally got Seven Wishes, the album,
right.
and realized there was more to that solo, it was like Christmas. It was like,
Oh,
oh,
sure. Yeah.
and now I can't imagine hearing it without it.
I
But
don't
for
know if we got that kind of edit in the United States. I'm not sure.
it was American radio, I would have been
Was it?
listening.
Okay.
I would have been hearing
All
that
right.
on, yeah.
Okay.
But it basically cuts if the solo's 8 bars, you get 4 bars,
I'll have to
and
check that out because I have the 45 of Sentimental Street, but I think I just bought it to have it.
yeah, you
Maybe I
probably did.
haven't played it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check
Um,
that out later.
so we flip the album over and we get Touch of Madness. And
Yes.
this song has opened many a Night Ranger show, and for good, it's a perfect opener.
Yep.
Got
Absolutely.
that off kilter, music box playing. And I've always wondered, as someone that was a huge Bon Jovi fan, I wonder if they got the idea for Tokyo Road from 7800 Fahrenheit, because that starts off with a music
With that
box,
music box. Yeah.
and it's the first song on side two.
That's
I
true.
don't know. But Touch of Madness is just such a fun. There's something off kilter about it, and I like it.
It's definitely another one of those songs that could have fit on Dawn Patrol.
Yeah,
I think it's heavy,
yeah,
it's dark. There's some shenanigans going on
yeah.
in
And
that song, definitely.
it kind of
And it's
spirals towards the end. It starts to speed up a little bit.
yeah, the first time I heard that song was before uh that summer that my brother and I spent with Patrick and hearing the whole Midnight Madness. The kids on the bus used to play that song on their big boom boxes on the bus, and they would do the minute,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
twirling type thing. And we're like, those crazy kids. And it wasn't until I did hear Touch of Madness on the album the whole time that it dawned on me, oh, that's that song those kids on the bus were listening to. And then just guitars, the Watson Gillis, uh, heavy. It reminds me almost of a Judas Priest to a certain extent.
A
There
little
is that
bit.
kind
Yeah,
of heavy metal part of
yeah,
Night Ranger
it's
on
pretty
the first two
seriously
albums.
heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I really liked, and get back to fans in motion
Hmm.
when they had Eric Levy on to talk about his favorite Fitz keyboard parts. I never
Absolutely.
realized exactly what was playing during the verses
Uh-huh.
of Touch of Madness, but it's this
Yeah.
weird like
Oh,
Twilight
it's kind of
Zone
a,
like
a
type
haunted house type deal.
60s like
I remember hearing that definitely. That was one of the things when I first heard that album. I was like, that's different. So it almost did give it kind of a scary feel to that song. It's again a dark song. There's some crazy things going on between the people among the people in that song.
yeah,
Um, and then the keyboard, spooky, I guess,
yeah.
organs. I don't know if that was say a Hammond organ he was doing that or another type
I
of
don't know yeah, it was like
keyboard.
what do they call
I
the
don't know.
Farfisa that has that
Yeah.
real cheesy 60 horror
Yes.
sound to it, but. But it's used to good effect.
Yes,
Next up
absolutely.
is another deep cut on the album, Passion Play, and
Yes.
I have described this song as drenched in melody. Like every part of the song is a hook.
I would say it's drenched in lust myself.
Well, that too, but musically, it's just
Yeah,
full of melodies and hooks.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, to
This
me, that
was
it just doesn't not let up. It's just hook after hook after hook.
if Sister Christian grabbed me the first time or second time I heard Midnight Madness, Passion Play was the next one that
Sealed
really,
the deal. Yeah,
oh my gosh.
yeah.
I've written about this in different places. Passion Play, there's a story going on there. Another dark song. Uh, there's a discernible climax about things not working out for people, possibly. Another song that would have, I think that if it was a Dawn Patrol song, they polish it up greatly to include it on Midnight Madness. And that's a song that I've only ever heard them play live when I saw them do the Dawn of
Dawn of
Madness.
Madness. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And
Um,
it just carries, I don't know what it is.
and
It
the
starts
bridge
with a
section,
unique beginning and it just, outstanding stuff.
the bridge section is so, nowhere to go, nothing to say. Like, Jack's
Intense.
just singing higher and higher and higher, and then it cuts down for the solo, and
Yeah.
the end where they come in, do down 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 down, like
Keeps
it's just
driving
so
to the fade.
good.
It's musically, it tells a story. Lyrically, it tells a story. It's just, I can't believe they don't pull that one out a little more often. Again, it is a deep cut. The
Yeah, but
diehards, you know,
for I would think for a band like Night Ranger, you could almost pull out any song from Midnight Madness and people would know it because it was their biggest album. Same thing with Seven
Midnight
Leaves.
Madness is our hysteria, if you think about it.
Yeah,
The diehards, again,
I
we
think you'd be
love every
pretty
song
safe
on
playing
there.
just about any song off.
Yes. Even ones that maybe you're not, it's not your favorite, you would be stunned to hear it. This is what was fun about Dawn of Madness.
Yeah,
Um, we're hearing Why Does Love Have to Change? Every once in a while they do throw in Passion Play, but we're hearing Chipping Away, Let 'Em Run.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
did kind of mix up the order. They said that this was the sequence that we wanted it to be when we did the album. The record company had other ideas. Well, when they played that part of the Midnight Madness portion of Dawn Madness, it was very convenient that the last three songs they played were When You Close Your Eyes, Sister Christian, and Rockin' America.
yeah, yeah.
So as to whether that was a true story, as this is the way we wanted it. Well, okay. It worked
That's
out that
it's not
night, you know.
often that bands close their albums out with their biggest hits.
Now, yeah.
But the only example I can think of that is Toto 4, where Africa is the last song on it.
Yeah, and even that was kind of they weren't
But
even
that was a
sure about
fluke.
that
They had
song.
no idea that was not
Yeah.
going to be the single. Like that was, but
Now,
that's a different story. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of I remember when you know s- me and my buddies started buying CDs to replace our cassettes, and the idea of putting it on shuffle, so you didn't know what order you'd hear the
Yeah.
songs in. We listened to Rats Out of the Cellar, which is still
Mm.
one of my all-time favorite
Yep.
albums. But it just so happens that the last two songs were Wanted Man and then Rounded Round. It's
Of
like, oh,
course.
that's interesting.
Yep.
The two
It worked
best
out.
known songs from the album. So next up we have the second biggest hit,
Yep.
top number 14 song, When You Close Your Eyes, with um, Jack as a younger boy, all dressed in white.
Yes.
I've always made that connection. I
Another
said it
great
to
visual.
Kelly. Um,
Yeah.
but another great storytelling song. And what I like about this is that, Night Ranger scored at least one major hit where you had both the singers trading vocals.
I think yes, you might have seen on the Fans of Motion page, Josh Weaver, one of the co-founders, along with Brent Walter and Andy Parker, would do a March Madness type thing with all the Night Ranger songs
Yeah.
and brackets and all that stuff. And I believe it was probably 2 or 3 years running by the fan votes and everything. This was When You Close Your Eyes was always the champion. And
Yeah.
it is the quintessential Night Ranger song. It's not a ballad per se, but you've got two guitars, both vocalists, as you mentioned, big chorus.
Yeah.
It
I
probably
think
is the quintessential Night
I
Ranger
think you're
song.
right. I mean, it's got all of the elements that
Right.
make Night Ranger
Yes.
in one song.
Yep.
Um, it's not the heaviest, it's not the lightest. You've
No.
got a good mix of in between.
Yeah.
Everything's in it. And
Yeah.
actually, the funny thing about When You Close Your Eyes is I don't remember hearing that song on the radio in '84. I do not remember. I don't think it was as big a hit in Canada. I never heard it
Right.
till I got the Greatest Hits album.
That song in the United States was it was sure no Sister Christian. I would say in the US it was probably along the lines of say a 4 in the morning or a Sentimental Street, maybe a little bigger, but by the time that album kicked in, it was because of Sister Christian, obviously. And so when you close your eyes did become a single, it was we did get a lot of airplay. Well, we heard a lot of that song here on U.S. radio, and it fit right in with the catalog you were hearing from all the other artists that year, 1984. And that was when you close your eyes. Is I it might have been because at the time my brother and I weren't home that summer. We were at the community pool in our town, riding our bikes or getting a ride with Pat into town. And they would take the PA system, put the mic up the radio, and that's all you heard was Summer of '84, all those awesome songs. And When You Close Your Eyes was definitely in there. So that song reminds me of summer.
Yeah,
That's a
and
big,
it
sunny,
is
fun song.
it's a summery song too, and
Yes, absolutely.
it's the chorus is simple, but
Yep.
it's easy to remember. You hear it once and you get it in your
Yeah.
head, and it's um there's emotion in it, and I know it
Yeah.
comes from a personal place for Jack,
Yes.
and it's just another great song. The sad thing is up here in Canada, the Night Ranger are sort of they're one of those bands that maybe it's because I grew up on the border that I was introduced to them, but
Right.
there are some bands that are sort of like a strictly US
Yeah.
success, like 38 Special, uh,
Sure.
really like Sammy Hagar solo,
Yeah.
a lot of bands like that. And
Right.
I would put Night Ranger in that category. Midnight Madness is their only gold album up here in Canada,
Right.
but I'll counter that by saying that Sister Christian went all the way to number 1 up here.
I know that. I noticed that. I know in the United States, I believe it got to
5.
5
Yeah,
the
which
weekend of June 5th, 1984.
Yeah, listen, I study that stuff too.
Yes,
But it's funny
absolutely.
when you look at stuff and you look at what was above it, sometimes you go, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
just so many good songs that just
Yeah.
not everything can get there. But so
Last time I
next
saw Night Ranger was last summer in Ohio. And I remember, and When You Close Your Eyes is always towards the end of the show. And I was kind of filming with my phone and kind of not. I these days I try to pay attention instead of filming stuff. But I turned my head to the right, and there's 5 women. I can't remember. They might have been my age, but I want to say they were younger, singing that chorus word for word.
yeah,
So that song knows no age
yeah.
boundaries at all.
It always it's a staple in their set list. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm sad to say I've only seen them once. I saw them. I got to see
I
them a couple
watched
years
that
ago.
video, and I think I told you that it was kind of a strange situation where you got to see them finally with the Brett Michaels show, and that was fine, but at least you did.
Yeah,
And
I would have loved to have seen a headline show and a longer
right.
set,
Yeah.
but hey, I got to see Night Ranger
Right.
and they sounded good. Got to meet them, um,
Oh,
and
great.
thanks to Josh for
Yep.
helping set that up. But
Yeah.
that was awesome, and it was yeah that was a
Yeah.
long drive to get to Guilford, New Hampshire from where I
Yeah.
live, but it was worth it. And Brett's show was fun too, and Jefferson Starship
Yeah.
are pretty good. I mean
I watched that
they were
your
good.
travel log, and I was like, yeah. And there's another band that you know as a casual fan, I suppose, of Jefferson Starship, I knew Jane and some of those songs, but for people
Oh,
who really didn't know them at all, they would be, oh, I know Jane, I know some of these other
No
ones.
Way Out, uh,
Right.
Find Your Way Back. Those are great songs.
Yeah. Hmm.
I've said this different times. If they came out, if the music they were making between like 79 and 84,
Hmm.
before they were just Starship, if they kept
Yeah.
making albums like that, I'd have every one of them
Yeah.
because that's
They would
good
have been
stuff. And
fine.
Mickey Thomas still sounds. He's not in the version that I saw
I
of
see.
Starship, but man, he could still sing really well.
Yeah.
He's like a freak of nature. Um, so
Yeah.
anyway, let's get back to Night Ranger chipping away. Now this I understand this was a last minute song,
Yeah,
but it
I
doesn't
believe
sound it
so.
to me. It sounds fully
Yeah.
formed and it's so catchy.
Well, I got the Sister Christian single before the full Midnight Madness album, and the B side is Chipping Away,
Away, yeah.
actually. So I heard, I knew that song from hearing the album before, but I thought that was a cool rockin' tune, similar to a Wise Love Have to Change, or to a certain extent, a lesser, not as heavy as Touch of Madness by any means, but it is a B side, I would say. But I like that song, definitely.
Yeah.
I understand it's not one of Kelly's favorites for some reason. Maybe because it was kind of
I
cooked
think
up
they
at
remember
the
the
end.
fact that they had to maybe scramble a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think it's a testament to their songwriting that this is
Yeah.
what you get when you scramble. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like
But yeah,
they definitely didn't choke under the pressure to get the album filled.
it's one of
Um,
those songs where I think if you took it away, the whole album would be out of place. If you
I think
remember,
so.
if you knew, a couple years ago, Brian Adams came out with an anniversary deluxe version of Reckless, and
Love
he
it.
put on some other tunes that weren't on there. Some of the ones that were in the movies, the
Yeah.
Teacher's song, some other
I
ones.
love it. I Let
You
Me Down
know,
Easy, one of my favorite Brian Adams songs.
excellent song. The title track, Reckless.
Yeah.
Love those songs. If you put them on Reckless as we know it, though, then Reckless doesn't flow. We're used to hearing these albums a
Yeah.
hundred
Yeah. It is
times. You know,
there is something strange about, you know, for years and years you've known this album as the
right?
9 or 10 or 12 songs or whatever it is. And then you
Yeah,
find out, well, these other songs, it's like, yeah, I'm glad that we get to hear. You know, another good
yeah.
example, another perfect example based on what we've been talking about is Journey's
Hmm.
Frontiers, because they
Sure.
had Ask the
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Lonely, which is one of my favorite Journey songs ever, and Only the
yeah.
Young.
Oh, classic
Now,
song.
what would they have taken off on Frontiers is my favorite Journey album. I don't want anything taken off.
See, I'm not a giant fan of Frontiers, but I still think it's mainly the B side. But and I those Ask the Lonely,
Only the
Only
Young.
the Young is classic Journey. Frontiers is still out of place if you swap stuff out.
I don't know what you, yeah, I mean, unless you wanted to make it a 12-song album, but I
Yeah,
remember I didn't hear Ask the Lonely until I got the Journey's Greatest Hits, and I'm like,
I
where
didn't
was
either,
this?
and I know that was in another movie.
That was in Two of a Kind, but it wasn't a
Right.
single. But I remember
Yeah.
Only the Young when it was on the
I
radio for
remember that
Vision.
was a huge
That was a
song on
that was
radio.
a top, I think it was number 9. It was a
It
fairly big
was
hit for them.
big song for a movie. There was a good movie, but didn't do a lot. I don't think. I just watched it for the first time the other day. Another great soundtrack, Vision
Yeah.
Quest. But chipping away, you can't take it. You can't move it.
No.
You know, it's part of the package. It's like a Floyd album. It's like Dark Side, taking apart Dark Side. You
Yeah,
know, just don't
it's
do
a
it.
it's
Yeah.
a perfectly good song. My enduring memory of Chipping Away is that my good friend John, when we kind of got into Night Ranger at the same time, he
Hmm.
found a US cassette
Hmm.
of Midnight Madness, and it is a misprint, and it says "Kipping Away." Is yours like that? The H is missing.
No, but I've heard that. Now mine's
It says "Kipping Away"
now
on
mine's
the J
good.
card and on the cassette itself.
Nah.
Anybody
Nope.
watching
Mine's
this,
all
and you've
good.
got that version of, it's like, you know, that's another thing from Fans in Motion. It never clued in that Big Life had two different, like there were two different versions of the Big Life cover with one had more stuff in the background. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
So,
The one with the stuff, I remember I bought that cassette, I think when I turned 13. The word on the other covers was that was the club version. Yeah.
okay. Gotcha.
And I have both those on CD and vinyl. I don't know if I have the cassette. I haven't bought a cassette for 30 years, of course.
Big Life was, I didn't buy it till 1990, but Big Life, I always tell this story. It's the first CD I ever bought
Yeah.
because I found it marked down for like 6.99, still in the long box.
Oh wow. Long boxes.
I wished I'd have kept my long boxes, but that's another story.
I had some of the 5150 I bought in a long box.
I had
Just
For
wish I'd
Unlawful
kept
Carnal
that.
Knowledge on right around 90 91.
Yeah.
I probably had about 2 dozen long boxes, but
Oh
I don't know
man.
where they all went.
Should have kept
I'd put
them,
them on my
man.
I'd cut the front off and put them on my wall.
That's what I used to. Yep.
All right,
Should have
so
kept them.
And we end off with Let
Yes.
'Em Run, which I think is a perfect send off, the perfect way to end the album.
Yep. If you believe what you hear, it's the first song they ever wrote together,
Interesting.
Night Ranger, which I think it is credited to Watson and Gillis, I think. Or no, Watson and Blades, but I'm not sure now. Watson,
Uh,
Blades, Kagi.
it's
Yeah.
credited to Watson, Blades, and Kigi.
Yes. So I think that's, again, switching stuff out. I don't think you can. I think this is a nice way to end heavy, loud, fun rock record. And it shows their versatility, that they're not just guitars blazing all the time. Uh, and just a cool way to end things, and
It's got some
a
weight
nice.
to it. It's not sappy.
No, it's if anything, I would say it's uplifting for anyone who would be the woman in that situation, or man, whatever
Yeah,
the
it's
case
kind of
is.
in that way. It's kind of anthemic.
Yes,
It's a good showcase for their harmonies because it's a quieter song. Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's a nice way to, you know,
yeah.
and it's you get the tie-in with the astronaut. To put on your was it to put on your rocket
Put
shoes?
on your rocket shoes, and take the straps from your wings. Yeah,
Yeah,
that a lot of that, especially when I was younger, had not hearing this kind of music, everything visually opened up to me. Like I was all sorts of pictures in my mind, what that might mean, or So it was a fun album to be introduced to rock and roll,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Because
I mean,
and this was we didn't get MTV till I was in seventh grade.
yeah.
Um, so the first time I saw a Sister Christian video, for example, was on a black and white TV with the picture rolling.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah,
none
yeah,
of these videos I saw until I was an adult, basically, or
yeah.
my early 20s, or
I
you know.
yeah, I think just it's important that younger people know just because MTV went on the air in 1981, that didn't mean everybody automatically had it.
Absolutely not.
I've
No,
read somewhere that one of the great ironies is that people in upstate New York or people where like in the area where MTV broadcasts out of didn't have it for 2
I
years
remember hearing that
of it
too.
being
Yeah,
on the air, which is pretty wild when you think about it. I
yeah.
first started I had an aunt and uncle that lived just across the border in
Mm,
Maine, and we used to go visit them. It was my mom's sister. We used to go visit them a lot, and around 85,
yeah,
they got a little box. I don't
yeah,
know if it was legal or not, but they got a little box, and all of a sudden there was MTV. So it was the first time I ever got to
yeah.
watch MTV, which is pretty cool. I don't remember seeing any Night Ranger, but this would have been. Well, no, maybe I did. Maybe I did see Sentimental Streaks. This would have been 85, but I don't know. I digress.
I The one time I saw a Night Ranger video, it was actually for "I Did It for Love" in 1988, and it
See,
was
now I
the
never saw that
very
video until the advent of
end.
YouTube.
It was the very end. It was the MTV rolling of the Night Ranger, blah blah blah, and then it was over. And I was
Yeah.
furious because I didn't turn the TV on 10 minutes
Much
before.
music,
Yeah,
obviously, like Night Ranger were not as popular in Canada, but I do remember seeing some videos. I mean, I remember seeing all the Midnight Madness videos, and I remember
yeah.
seeing Sister Christian, and I remember seeing Secret of My Success, and I saw Hearts Away once.
I never seen that on television,
Once.
or Color Your Smile.
Yeah,
All that's been
I didn't
YouTube.
know there was a video for that until probably joining the man in the fans in motion page.
Yep.
And I don't remember, and I never ever saw uh, Sing Me Away or Don't Tell Me You Love Me until
No.
YouTube.
No.
So
It
there you
kills
go.
me. They talk about "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" being on MTV all the time. I was like, well, I sure as heck didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. There's no question. If I'd seen it, I probably would have liked it. Uh,
Yeah,
so
yeah. I was an adult for the
yeah,
most part by the time I saw most of that stuff. And the uh, DVD of, I think there's 5 videos on it.
the Universal, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
had
have
that in my
that.
hands. I should have bought it when it came out because now it's like $75
Is it really?
used. Oh well. So there you go, folks.
Yeah,
That's Tom and me. That's our opinion on a much loved Night Ranger album. I mean, I think the sales figures speak for themselves. Although I've always said, they sold well. They should have sold more.
oh
But
yeah,
hey, it's up to us to keep the magic going. But this is
yeah,
an album that still holds up. It's an easy listen. I would highly recommend getting the Rock Candy remastered version because
absolutely.
it just sounds even better, and you get
Yeah,
the little intricacies and stuff like Touch of Madness and Rumors in the Air, and
yep.
There you go. And I will post a link to the Fans in Motion pages below this. And Tom, I want to thank you for doing this. This was great.
Thank you very much, Tim. Appreciate it. This is fun.
All right, this has been the deep dive on Night Ranger's Midnight Madness. I'm going through the entire Night Ranger studio catalog, so keep watching, especially for these newer albums that maybe people don't know about that are just as good and just as worth talking about. We'll see you again. Thanks for watching Tim's final